It's time now for the week that was. Now let's take a look at the top stories that made headlines across the globe this week. And of course, we are starting here in Nigeria, where President Bola Tinubu earlier this week announced sweeping changes to his cabinet. Several ministers have been reassigned, some dismissed, and new faces nominated to join the cabinet. Adesua Omoroan will tell us more.
The Federal Executive Council reconvened after a month's hiatus and a 2 weeks vacation by President Bola Tinubu. After months of speculation, the president finally announces a sweeping cabinet reshuffle aimed at boosting government efficiency. The shakeup includes a major restructuring, reassignment of ministers, dismissals, as well as appointments.
The president has approved the immediate implementation of 8 far-reaching actions to reinvigorate the administration's capacity for optimal efficiency, pursuant of its commitment to deliver on its promises to Nigerians. The 8 actions approved by the president include: 1, as the Minister of Information had already told us, the renaming of the Ministry of Nigeria Data Development to Ministry of Regional Development to oversee the activities of all the regional development commissions. The regional development commissions to be under the supervision of the new ministry are the Niger Delta Development Commission, the Southeast Development Commission, the Northeast Development Commission, and the Northwest Development Commission.
The Ministry of Sports Development has been dissolved, with its responsibility now transferred to the National Sports Commission, which will be chaired by Shehu Diko, while Sunday Dare, former Minister of Sports in the Muhammadu Buhari administration, is appointed as the Special Advisor to the President on Public Communication and Orientation. Additionally, the Ministry of Tourism has been merged with the Ministry of Arts and Culture, creating the Ministry of Arts, Culture, Tourism and Creative Economy, now led by Hannatu Musawa. Tinubu wielded the big stick, dismissing 5 ministers as part of the sweeping cabinet reshuffle.
These are the following ministers who have been discharged, and as you know, the president met them this afternoon to thank them for their services for the nation. They are as follows: Barrister Uju Ken Ohaneye, Minister of Women Affairs; Lola Adejohn, Minister of Tourism; Professor Tahir Mamman, Minister of Education; Abdullahi Muhammad Guazo, Minister of State Housing and Urban Development; Dr. Jamila Bio Ibrahim, Minister of Youth Development. So only 5 ministers were discharged.
10 ministers have been reassigned to new portfolios. Dr. Yusuf Sununu, previously Minister of State for Education, is now Minister of State for Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction. Tunji Alausa, formerly Minister of State for Health, has been elevated to the role of Minister of Education. Bello Goronyo, who was the Minister of State for Water Resources and Sanitation, is now the Minister of State for Works. Abubakar Momo, who once led the Niger Delta Ministry, now oversees the newly created Ministry of Regional Development. Uba Amadu, who served as Minister of State for Steel Development, has been reassigned as Minister of State for Regional Development. Doris Uzoka Anete has transitioned from the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment to become Minister of State for Finance. Senator John Eno, previously in charge of Sports Development, is now the Minister of State for Trade and Investment following the dissolution of his former ministry. Iman Suleiman Ibrahim moves from Minister of State for Police Affairs to Minister of Women Affairs. Ayodele Olawande, previously Minister of State for Youth Development, is now the Minister of Youth Development, and Dr. Salako Adeboye, formerly Minister of State for Environment, takes on the role of Minister of State for Health. In addition to these changes, President Tinubu has nominated 7 new ministers pending Senate approval. The nominees include Dr. Netawe Yiwatda as Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, Bianca Odinaka Odumegu Ojukwu as Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Muhammadu Megari Dinyaji, who previously served as Minister of Police Affairs under former President Muhammadu Buhari, has been nominated to replace Simon Lalong as Minister of Labour and Employment. Lalong had left the administration to focus on his position in the 10th Senate. Others are Jumoke Oduwole as Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Idimukta Mahia as Minister of Livestock Development, a newly established ministry, Suwaiba Ahmed has been nominated as Minister of State for Education, while Yusuf Atta is nominated as Minister of State for Housing and Urban Development. The president had set up a central delivery coordination unit led by Hadiza Bala Usman to measure the performance of his minister. Since then, only Betta Edu, Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, had been suspended after an alleged financial misappropriation until now, as she has been officially replaced in this cabinet overhaul. This shake-up comes after months of anticipation and follows President Tinubu's earlier warning to members of his cabinet about underperformance issued 10 months ago during a retreat. No doubt this reshuffle raises expectations on performance as the administration faces pressure to deliver on its promises and address Nigeria's pressing challenges. From the presidential villa, Adesuwa Omorwan, Arise News.
Well, it seems after waiting months on end for a cabinet reshuffling, we were disappointed, at least I was disappointed, by this cosmetic reshuffle. Now, it's honestly, for me, it's absolutely a shame that ministers who were never supposed to have been ministers in the first place are the ones who have been let go. And I'd like to see what the performance metrics were, because if we are saying that this is based off of performance alone, then we have to question why some ministers are still in that cabinet. Why the Minister of Blue Economy, last time I checked on him, I think he was sharing pots and pans in Osun State. Why is he still a minister? Why is the Minister of Power, Honorable Mr. Adelabu, why is he still a minister? If this is just about performance, yes. Barrister Uju Kennedy, sad to see you go for some, for others, a relief. You know, former Honorable Mr. Lola Adejon did not see much of you when you were in office. Sad to see you go for some. But, you know, when we're talking about performance, when we're talking about results, in the whole batch of over 40 ministers that we had, to see only 5 go, I think is very, very disappointing. If this is going beyond performance, I think this is also about politics. And when we see the new ministers that have been added in, the only person that I would say puts a smile on my face is Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, who has an incredible track record from her university days till date. However, I don't know, Mr. Steve?
Well, I mean, I understand you are disappointed. I don't know about that, but I agree that a lot of people will say that what the president has done is a bit underwhelming because a lot of people expected a lot more than that. I think a lot of people actually expected that maybe we will have an appreciable reduction in the size of the cabinet. But what we have is even more bloated now. 5 ministers sacked, 2 out already, and then we have 7 other people. You can ask yourself, what are ministers of state really doing? You know, at a time that we are saying that we are trying to cut costs and the sort of, you know, cost-cutting measures that we are looking for is the number of vehicles in the convoy of a minister. Convoy, we're still using the word convoy, you know, for public servant, you know. So maybe on that score, that's why a lot of people would or might be disappointed. But I think that there were a couple of smart moves in what the president did. I like the fact that the sports ministry has been, you know, asked, and then the functions of that ministry has been given to the National Sports Commission. I recall that at a time when I had the privilege to serve in Lagos State, there wasn't a sports ministry either. There was the head of the Lagos State Sports Commission, who also doubled as a special advisor to the governor. The idea is that, you know, a minister does not drive sport, you know. Just ensure that you have a solid commission that can do that. So I think that maybe the president borrowed a leaf from Lagos State to get that done. The same thing, in my opinion, for scrapping the Niger Delta ministry. I think that after 16 years, it was, I think, President Yar'Adua that created that ministry in September of 2008. And then you can ask yourself, now that we have different regional development commissions, who should be overseeing them? So I thought that was a brilliant idea, particularly when the same minister has been retained and then given a Minister of State to look at that. So we'll now say that, okay, the things that led to the creation of Niger Delta Ministry, are they still there? The minister can deal with that, and at the same time, deal with the Northwest Development Commission, Northeast Development Commission, Southwest, Southeast, and all those, area. I also like the fact that the president has returned the tourism ministry back to arts, culture, and creative economy. When they were three together, information, national orientation, culture, tourism, people felt that it was too bogus, and that when you have a minister who's the spokesperson of government, he probably won't have sufficient time to look after matters of culture and tourism. But then what we got last year was that that ministry was balkanized into three. Now, it makes sense because what was Madam Lola Adejohn doing? I concede that, for a certain number of times she was not available on health grounds, but then she was only supervising two agencies, and you probably knew of the DGs of the agencies much more than you knew her because there was little for her to do. I don't think it was about the fact that she was a stranger in that ministry. Is about the fact that that ministry couldn't stand alone in the manner that it was created. So I like the fact that it has returned to culture and creative economy. Let's see if Hannatu Musawa, will be able to harness the potentials there. So a few sparks of smart moves here and there, but then in terms of the things that actually affect Nigerians, the reason why many Nigerians have been complaining about the administration and not getting things done in the manner that they would have wished. I'm not sure that, Niger Delta or tourism or youth ministry or, or sports, will be the things that people are talking about. What happens to the core economic team? What happens to agri? You've given us livestock, but then...
there was a little movement there with moving the former Minister of Industry and Trade, Dr. Doris Anite, to now be Minister of State for Finance, because I do think our Minister for Finance, our coordinating minister, does need some help.
But then when you move a minister who's like a substantive minister to become a minister of state, a lot of people feel that what's going on here, maybe it's not very, which it looks like it, which is my point about what our ministers of state actually doing. The Constitution of Nigeria stipulates that one minister should come per state, and that's 36. If you use your presidential power to say let one represent one geopolitical zone, which, frankly speaking, what for? That will give you 6 plus 36, that's 42. But we have 45 or something now, or if not 46, or So let's see how it goes. But maybe the president does not intend to stop here. Maybe this will be a progressive thing, given the fact that Hadiza, Balausman will continue to monitor and then recommend. But like you said, Adesua, what were the metrics? Because there are ministers there that you're like, what the heck are they still doing there? Exactly. Frankly speaking.
I mean, I agree with the two of you 100%. I believe that this move in itself was very superficial. It didn't really address the core needs of the Nigerian people. I also, when we talk about, the merging of, tourism, because that was one minister that we did not hear from at all. And you've made reference to the fact that she was not feeling, she was not in her best shape, which you cannot hold her accountable for. You can't tell your body exactly when it's supposed to work right or when it isn't. But we cannot keep waiting, especially when we look at, what tourism is doing for other different countries and the amount of revenue that it's actually bringing in.
It can be unless to be the next
exactly.
To do it well.
Exactly. But I love the fact that it's been added to the ministry, like you said, of arts, culture, and the creative economy. Especially when you look at the legwork that Minister Hannatu Musawa already has put on ground, already seems to be covering tourism in that sense. But then when you look at the reassignment of certain ministers, there's some that I just don't understand. When we look at Senator John Owan Eno, who was the Minister of Sports Development, is now the Minister of State for Trade and Investment. You look at the Minister of State for Youth Development, the Minister of State for Police Affairs, Iman Sulaiman Ibrahim, who is now the Minister of Women Affairs. It just seems as if it's like, let's just reshuffle or make Nigerians a bit happy. We just have this conversation a bit, and then everything just goes back to the status quo. Not to, spend too much time on this. With this reassignment, really and truly, what does that mean for the Nigerian people? We now have about 80 million Nigerians that have been plunged into extreme poverty. We've also seen, on the backdrop of President Tinubu saying that, we have to reduce the number of cars in their... Okay, but the number of ministers has not reduced. They are reducing their car. Those 7 cars that they are going to reduce from their 10 convoy, their 10-car convoy, what are those cars going to be used for? Where are those cars going to be?
They had 10-car convoy before now?
Oh, yes.
Really?
Yes.
All the ministers?
Some of them. But then
some have numerous numbers. In fact, you might think it's a head of state coming through in Abuja.
Exactly.
Stop traffic, stop movement. You hold your breath.
For ministers.
For a minister,
Wow.
So
yes.
it shouldn't end there. This seems like a good move. It took the president almost 10 months since when he said he was going to shake things up till now. So if we're saying that this is just the beginning, are we going to wait another 10 months? How long is left in...
Well, the next question maybe should be that, is the president satisfied with the ministries, for example, of finance, of power, and things like that?
Exactly.
Is that the idea, of performance that he appreciates or that he thinks that Nigerians should get? Because if you are retaining them, and that's like a pass mark, isn't it?
Yes.
which is shocking to some, isn't it?
All right, then moving on. Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shettima was this past Thursday forced to cancel his planned trip to the Commonwealth Heads of Government Summit in Samoa after a foreign object struck the cockpit windscreen of his plane during a stopover at JFK Airport in New York. In a statement by the presidential advisor, Bayo Ononuga, the President Bola Tinubu, in the wake of that incident, approved a ministerial delegation led by Environment Minister Balarabe Lawal to represent Nigeria at the summit, which is scheduled to be closed today, October 26th. Shettima had been out of the country since last week following a 2-day working visit to Sweden before being scheduled to attend the Samoa summit. The presidential spokesman also added that Shettima and Foreign Affairs Minister Yusuf Tuga were on their way back to Nigeria. Well, there's really not much to say about this story, but then, of course, I just pray that this does not mean that we're going to have to buy another jet because something fell on the cockpit. Of course, we are happy that this was not, it wasn't much worse. Of course, it could have been a lot more worse if this happened maybe while they were landing, while they were taking off, or even while they were in transit. But fortunately, that's not the situation. The Vice President is doing fine. And when we look at, the Samoa summit in itself that is currently happening, it's one of those things where we're looking at the intentionality behind the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. The Vice President isn't able to make it anymore. But I also don't want this to now become one of those many various meetings that we've gone for as a country, and we can't really see what that has done exactly. I was watching a speech that King Charles III gave, because that conversation about reparations has, come up during this Commonwealth meeting, and him also as, saying that, we can change the past, but it doesn't look like there's going to be any reparations, any financial settlements happening anytime soon. So of course we just were happy that.
You got
I guess, because I do think, the Commonwealth meeting, one thing that has happened that I'm very happy about is that Honorable Shirley Botchway has been named, and she's been voted in the new Secretary General of the Commonwealth. I was lucky to meet her in New York during the UN General Assembly, and she also spoke particularly about her President Nana Akufo-Addo pushing her forward for the position, and his using Ghana's soft power to push her forward. And I think, the last Commonwealth President, Secretary General, my apologies, from Africa was Nigeria, and it was 20 years ago. And so you do see the importance of nations using their soft power and diplomacy on that stage to move their nation forward, to position their people forward. And it's lovely to see it be an African woman. It's lovely to see it be a woman from Ghana. That's our brothers down the road. But also just a little touching on the issue of reparations. One thing that I will say is that the problem the Commonwealth faces is that, we have the Commonwealth, we have BRICS, we have UN, and you think about the significance of the Commonwealth in this environment where it does not have so much economic significance, but it does have diplomatic significance. And the conversation about reparations is always one-sided, that, people, descendants of slaves want money. But at the same time, it's important to know that these governments, particularly the UK, did give reparations to slave owners when they ended slavery, taking out bonds that the financial instruments did not end to 2015.
Yeah.
That's very recent. So the economic significance of saying, sorry, we banned slavery, we took your property and made them human beings again. Here is money that we're paying to you, your descendants, your land holdings, and that those descendants of the actual slaves who were enslaved, not slaved, enslaved people, that their descendants are not asking for too much or making too much noise is a bit insulting,
Absolutely,
I think.
absolutely. I totally agree with you. Just to chip in, a few sentences, right from first with the Vice President's aircraft. I think that without more details at this point, it will be interesting to know what actually happened. And I know that stores like that, like you said, Shaitan, they can be scary. I know of, I knew somebody very close that I worked with who had a private jet and then flew a few years ago and landed in the UK. And the moment, it touched down, the windshield cracked, totally, came down. And, they had to fly in experts from the manufacturers and blah, blah, from Canada to fix it, and that took a couple of weeks. So, and I read what they said about the Vice President thing, that it was, strange and curious. So you need, they need to take time to actually find out what happened. Glad to note, of course, that it didn't happen, mid-air, but of course, that's a significant development that we can't just brush away. The part that I don't, that is not pleasing will be the fact that it looks to me like we missed Shogun at the end of the day, because when you say that we have swiftly deployed the Minister of Environment to go there, it looks to me like we were not even there to wish Ghana well, let alone, voting for Ghana, given the fact that our own Chief Emeka Anyaoku was the only, I believe, the first and the last, African Secretary General between 2000 and 2010, I believe. So congratulations to Ghana, more so that, it's a lady that is now the Secretary General of the Commonwealth of Nations. But like you said, it is just, Shogun will just be one of those platforms through which nations can, deploy their soft power. Ghana has done it very well, and we must congratulate them. I'm looking forward to how Nigeria will congratulate her, and especially Chief Emeka Anyaoku. All right, we'll proceed. The other pressing matters here at home, where the House of Representatives has directed its Committee on Power to investigate the immediate and remote causes of the frequent national grid collapses in recent times, and to provide a report within 3 weeks. The decision follows a motion of urgent national importance raised by Mansour Soro during House plenary on Wednesday. The lawmaker expressed deep concern over the persistent grid failures, which have plunged the entire country into blackout, worsening the economic challenges already faced by Nigerians. He noted that the national grid has collapsed 8 times in 2024 alone, describing the situation as alarming.
The Nigerian nation has continued to witness unending power grid collapses, with 8 incidences occurring in 2024 so far. The House is disturbed that the entire states in the northeast, northwest, and some part of the north-central zones has been thrown into darkness over the last 2 days in what the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, described as faulty transmission lines. The House is worried that the unending grid collapse is coming at a time of worsening national hardship caused by the extreme naira devaluation embarked upon by the Central Bank of Nigeria. The House is regretting that this sad development is coming at a time when the Honorable Minister of Power has given assurances to the nation of a stable power sector.
8 times alone so far this year, the national grid has collapsed. I left home in the part of Lagos where I live, which is a Band A, area without light, and Band A is supposed to be getting 20 hours a day or something like that. And at the time that the president rejigged his cabinet, we have the gentleman who's supposed to be in charge getting a pass mark that he has done very well and therefore should continue. 8 times this year, 99 times under Muhammadu Buhari, power grid collapse, 99 times. If he had stayed maybe a week longer, enough, he would have, 200. Almost 500 times in the 10 years before Buhari. This is the story. This is our reality, sad reality, as far as the issue of power generation, power distribution is concerned. It looks to me like a giant of Africa is only here that generating power and distributing it has become something of a rocket science. So sad. But then if we have been told that this is the way we should continue, what else can we do, frankly speaking? What else can we do?
Not much. I mean, rightfully, you rightfully said Nigeria's Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, has managed to survive this cabinet reshuffle by President Tinubu despite evident underperformance. And if you say 8 times this year alone, I stand with the Honorable Soro, who is expressing this, deep concern about this persistent, grid failures. We can't keep living like this. And this Band A, yes, well, I've joined Band A, so if you are stressing that Band A is going to give us 20 hours of light, and then with that, all we're experiencing is the collapse, and it takes a long time before, once it's back up, for energy to come back. We look at the Northwest and the Northeast as the biggest regions that are suffering this because they are left in darkness. We live in Lagos, so by the time the power comes on, we get it first. But we're looking at those in the North and in the Northwest and Northeast being in persistent darkness. It attributes directly to the economic state of the country, because if there's no power, there's so many things that our businesses are affected. The price of petrol, of course, has gone up. So it's exactly. So I'm really waiting to see. I think they've been given about 3 weeks to come up with the reason why we're seeing consistent power failures, and this promise that we keep getting that we're actually following the government's approval of increased electricity tariffs for Band A doesn't align with what we're seeing. So hopefully this rejig would push the Minister of Power to see exactly and find out exactly why we're continuing to see this. 3 weeks.
You have survived the wars for now.
And this is my issue with the reshuffling and also with this conversation. Even with the House of Representatives having a conversation saying, let's have a committee, let's sit down, let's talk. We know what the issue is. We have a power generating problem. We do not generate enough power. We have a transmission problem, and our transmission points are collapsing. Because we did not take care of the infrastructure. Yeah. We did not invest into the infrastructure. And that's also another issue. The people who were in government before want to come now and tell us, these ones are doing the wrong thing. There has been poor maintenance of the infrastructure for decades. And then the ones who are there now, our Minister of Power came out weeks ago to say it's inevitable that it's going to collapse. And I want to know, if it's inevitable, can we please give somebody with the capacity to do the job, to actually do it? Because our energy crisis, and it is actually a crisis, there is no energy poor country in this world where they are actually a rich country, where their GDP is growing on that rate. You cannot be energy poor, and you cannot have restricted access to electricity, restricted access to clean cooking, and have a population that is growing and reaching the levels that the world is moving at. And we have, you need someone to come and fix we have to talk about gas when we're talking about energy. We have to talk about debt when we're talking about energy. We have to talk about innovation when we're talking about energy. And you're telling me that Bayo Adelabu, the Honorable Minister, passed, that he fully understands the problems in ground, that he has a consolidated plan for us to go forward? Someone who's telling the people of Nigeria to unplug their freezers and it's inevitable? Okay.
I think that the government should know play politics with power.
They should not.
You remember when former Governor Fashola was given 3 ministries and everybody was saying Okurimeta, Okurimeta. Of course, in the second time, Buhari realized that, okay, maybe power would not be, his best forte. And he removed it and gave it to somebody else so that he could concentrate on works and housing. If a certain minister must at all costs remain in cabinet, then put him where he can perform better and not necessarily, where it looks to many people that he's struggling and things like that. And so Nigerians have a right to say, is this the best that we can get from the Honorable Minister, from this government? It doesn't look like that to many people. And I think that, we should fix this. We should fix this, All right, that's a wrap on the week that was, but let's take a minute or two to bring you an update on a couple of stories making the rounds. And we'll start with the United States Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, who is in London for talks with Arab leaders about possible ways of de-escalating the Middle East conflict. Blinken is meeting foreign ministers from Jordan and the United Arab Emirates, as well as the Lebanese Prime Minister, Najib Mikati. America's top diplomat has been trying to get a ceasefire for many months, albeit with little progress. In Lebanon, which has become the new epicenter of the Middle East conflict, the information minister, Zayad Makari, described an Israeli attack that killed 3 journalists as a war crime. He accused Israel of deliberately targeting reporters while they slept in a guest house in the southern town of Asbaya. Video footage shows cars marked press covered in dust and rubble.
Well, this situation now with Blinken is a situation where America is still funding Israel. America is still continuing to fund Israel. You have senators in America coming out asking for journalists to have access to Gaza, because what we are seeing out of Lebanon, claiming that hospitals are secret bunkers holding gold and cash in the millions, the amount of journalists that have died in the past year alone. Al Jazeera reported that the targeting technology that was used to find these journalists, that the journalists were actively sharing their information with the UN in order for them to know we're journalists, please do not attack us, and that UN shared that information with Israel, and Israel bombed them. Journalists.
Sad. All right, we have to proceed.
Yes. The district attorney in Los Angeles has said that 2 brothers, Eric and Lyle Menendez, should be resentenced over the shooting and killing of their parents in their Beverly Hills home in 1989. The brothers had confessed to committing the crime out of fear that they were about to be killed themselves, to keep their father's sexual molestation a secret. During their trial, they argued that the killings were manslaughter because they were endangered. But the court had dismissed their plea and went on to sentence the both of them to life imprisonment without parole. Last year, however, new evidence emerged which backed up the brothers' claims of abuse. And now the Los Angeles District Attorney, George Gascon, has recommended that the brothers be given a lighter sentence, which also means that they could walk free.
Meanwhile, Grammy Award-winning rapper Lil Durk has been arrested in Florida on federal charges that he paid for the attempted 2022 revenge killing of rapper Quando Rondo at a Los Angeles gas station, a shooting that resulted in the death of Rondo's cousin. Durk is charged with conspiracy to commit murder for hire in the killing of Xavier Robinson, who was gunned down on August 19, 2022, according to an FBI affidavit released this past Friday. Durk, whose real name is Dirk Banks, won a Grammy earlier this year for his best melodic rap performance for his song All My Life, which featured J. Cole. He's also been nominated 3 times.
Well, that's all on the week that was.